All right, we're going to talk about using other materials than marker, and I'm going to kind of throw out a bunch of different ideas. So you can, if you have any kind of paint at home, for example, I have some tempera paint. So I started painting this, the same colors. I just took brushes and I started kind of deciding what I wanted to paint and painted that. I have my black Sharpie, so I'm just gonna go over this area when I'm done. And so I painted that. Now that would need to dry and then I could keep painting, However, that would have to happen. And so I just have tempera paint. You could use any kind of paint. I don't know how well watercolors will work. So I have the same colors. I have blue, I have green, I have red, and then I have black. So I'm gonna paint the whole front and then I can choose to let it dry and paint the whole back. So the next portion of that is the back part. So like I said, we have different kind of backs. What I might choose to do with my back is paint it. And so I wanted to show you that. So I might again take paint, whatever kind of paint, and paint the whole back. Especially if you used an old box, you're definitely gonna have to get creative of how to get the back covered. It makes it a little bit more difficult. And then I have to set that aside and let it dry. The other thing I could do with my back, so painting, as you can see, you can do the front and the back, however you want. This back I painted, this was marker. So depending on what supplies you have at home. This, I was painting the front, but then I also painted the back, but I have to wait for both. Another choice is what you could do is you could use some tissue paper. So for my tissue paper, I'm gonna kind of walk you through that. You will need some glue, some Elmer's glue, and you might have those colors of tissue paper at home. This again is kind of like paint in the sense of it's a little bit messier, and so it's gonna take you doing it at home. I can't have you do it at school because then I don't know if you'll pick them up at the end of the day. That's what I fear. So I would rip tissue paper and kind of get that on top and cover the whole back. And even if it dries and I need to cut it off at the end, I could totally do that. So I don't have to be perfect here. So I'm just kind of making tissue paper on top. And keep ripping tissue paper and adding it to my design. So I just have Elmer's glue, but then I'm not quite done yet. In order to get it really stuck and the way that I'm thinking I want it to be, I'm gonna do a next step here. So I've kind of laid it on top, but then I'm gonna add some glue on top of that, and I'm gonna get a paintbrush and some water and kind of thin this out. This acts as like Mod Podge. Maybe you've used Mod Podge before. So then I can kind of go over the whole piece. It will eventually all stick and dry. So this is tissue paper and this is Elmer's glue on top and underneath. And then I'm just kind of spreading out the Elmer's glue with a paintbrush. Might add a little bit more under and over. Now I'm gonna let this dry and then I'm gonna cut it, okay? Now I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. This is what it looks like when it's done, possibly, but now I would actually flip it back over and I'm gonna cut all that extra off, how I don't want it, and then I'm gonna finish coloring the front. I like to work all over the place because things have to dry. So for me, I did that back, it dried, and so now I'm gonna go back and I just kind of cut an irregular shape here. And now I'm gonna color the front of this, finish this piece, okay? But you can kind of see the tissue paper result. The other form that we could do, and it is what we're gonna do in the classroom. We are going to take one, I was looking for one. Do I have one that I haven't touched yet? I have a lot, don't I? I gotta keep ahead of you guys. So this is not very great, it's kind of ugly. So I'm going to take and do that same thing with construction paper, because then you can take them back home And I can rip up construction paper to be tiny little pieces, or I could kind of just take bigger pieces and get this glued on the best I can. I'm gonna just, so again, I could do little or big, however I want. I'm kind of demonstrating both. So I'm kind of gluing this green paper, sticking to the color scheme. I'm gonna add a little bit more glue. Just get this. So then it kind of gives it some texture. I press down and I'm gonna let this dry, okay? Now, when this is dry, then I'm gonna, again, cut around it and get rid of all the extra. Okay, so clearly this is not dry yet. I'm gonna go back over and cut all this off. I had, so I could show you what the end result looked like. This is kind of what it would possibly look like. I have blue and green that I've used construction paper. This is bigger, but at least then now they're done. And then I've cut them out in kind of irregular shapes. I haven't cut too much off, but I cut enough off that I can kind of, it's just not a perfect square. That's why I said, hey, they don't need to be perfect when we cut them, because we're gonna make them more irregular, like Miro would make his projects, right? So I have some that I'm not quite done with, but you can see I need to finish these guys, but I have the front and the back is what I'm working on. Ideally, we need the whole thing colored. How you get it colored, I'm open, but like I just kind of demonstrated here, you can really use any supplies that you have at home that are these colors. Okay, and at school we're a little more limited, and we'll use, because of you taking it home, we'll probably use construction paper for the back. All right, so continue with our Miro project.